Good morning, everyone. Okay, good morning. We're going to start with a few housekeeping rules here, and this meeting is being live streamed today. There will be an opportunity for questions after each presentation. We will take public comment from those who are in person and submitted a card. Representatives from local, state, and tribal partners will have an opportunity to provide updates during agenda item number 9. And thank you. Drew, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Yvette. Well, welcome everybody to the Resiliency Forum. I'm going to call the Resiliency Forum of South Florida, the May edition. Glad everyone could be here and attend and communicate, collaborate, strategize, whatever you need to do during this forum. That's why it exists. Because, I mean, it's honestly very important that we do this. And Carolina, I thank you and your team for organizing this and making sure that we have the opportunity to come together and share what we know and share some strategies and talk about this. You know, the more we do this, the more we realize how important it is that we're doing it, right? Because we're developing the models. Some of those will be talked about today. We're starting to see into the future, right? And what the future in South Florida looks like. Hang on. There we go. Almost every morning this happens to me. We're starting to see what the future looks like, and we're starting to see what it looks like and when it might arrive, and all those types of things, which kind of underpins how important it is that all of us as sort of people in the industry and the public servants for our local communities stay on track on this. And the reason I say that is because the funding is ebbs and flows, right? And so this year we had a funding ebb with the BRIC grants. But that should not deter what we're doing, because there will be a funding flow, because everybody knows that this is important for society. It's important for the ecosystems. It's important for everything we do in South Florida. And so it's up to us to collaborate, get together, and make sure we have the plans ready, everything teed up for when the funding flows. And that's why it's important to have this kind of communication. I know our resiliency plan has just been updated. We'll talk about that today. But that's our plan, right? That is where we have ready for the funding flows. And so that's, all of us have that, no matter where we're coming from, as we're thinking about the future of resiliency in South Florida. And so I do appreciate this forum. I appreciate that we're all engaging on this matter. And I appreciate Carolina and her team for making this happen for us. Because we've got the energy, right? We are leaning into this, making sure we've got the collaboration. I really appreciate what we do with the county and city governments as we try to make these things happen and tee them up for success, because that's what it's taking. So thanks for attending. I look forward to hearing about how this goes. I'll turn it over to Carolina right now to introduce the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Drew. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I believe we have Dr. Rains in the line.
I'm here.
Let me make sure we can hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me, Carolina?
Yes, it's a little low, Dr. Rains.
How about if I lean in a little bit?
Okay, I'll have them raise the volume.
We're going to try to raise the volume a little bit here.
Okay, tell me when you want to hear from me again.
Give us a second just to see if we can make it louder.
Okay, let's.
Make me louder.
Okay, that's better. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, so you ready for me now? Carolina?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Carolina, for the invitation to come and speak at the outset of what I know will be an important and productive day. I especially want to thank all of you in attendance today. As always, we appreciate your continued engagement on what I know we all agree is the most important resilience initiative, not only in our state, but perhaps in any state nationwide. I'm sorry I can't join you in person today, and that I can't even join you virtually all day today, but I'm unfortunately double booked with you there in West Palm and here in Tallahassee. So virtual for the time being is going to have to suffice. As you can see on the screen there, my name is Mark Rains. I'm actually both a professor of geology at the University of South Florida and the chief science officer for the state of Florida in the Department of Environmental Protection. I'm here today with you today as a poor substitute for our longtime and highly valued Chief Resilience Officer, Dr. Wes Brooks. If you are not aware, Wes recently stepped down as our Chief Resilience Officer. He's currently serving as Deputy Assistant Administrator in the Office of Water at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, where he incidentally works closely with and under the direction of Assistant Administrator Jess Kramer, who you may recall was previously our equally long-serving and highly valued Deputy Secretary of Regulatory at the Department of Environmental Protection. And though they both continue to do great work on behalf of us all here in the state of Florida, Wes is clearly no longer able to do so in his previous capacity as the Chief Resilience Officer. If this were day one of the Resilient Florida program, we would all be in a panic without his knowledge, steady hand, and overall leadership. Fortunately, it's not day one. We've been at this, in fact, for these past few years, so we all have a good sense both of our own roles and responsibilities and the roles and responsibilities of others, including the Chief Resilience Officer. Therefore, in the immediate term, we're going to serve as a, quote, Chief Resilience Officer by committee, end quote, an informal committee of the willing, while we eagerly await a permanent replacement. I'll remind you briefly of the overall framework of the Resilient Florida program. Recall that there is a statewide vulnerability data set, including sea level rise, extreme rainfall, and compound flooding. That statewide vulnerability data set informs a statewide vulnerability assessment, which includes potential impacts at critical assets, which include transportation assets like ports and airports, infrastructure assets like drinking and wastewater facilities, emergency assets like fire stations and hospitals. And I always like to make special note of natural and cultural assets like shorelines and historical buildings. And that statewide vulnerability assessment then informs an annually updated statewide vulnerability plan, which includes the list of projects eligible for funding. Moving through that program oversight shifts from the Chief Resilience Officer, that is currently me, who has, for example, primary oversight over the statewide vulnerability data set, to the Chief Resilience Officer, who has, for example, primary oversight on the downstream end over that statewide vulnerability plan. Lacking a Chief Science Officer, you have me with you today, and indeed at all times as a liaison here in Tallahassee. We do face another challenge, at least in the immediate term. As you know, the legislative session ended May 6th without a budget. The legislature has called themselves back into special session. Initially had an end date of June 6th, which, as we'll note, is late next week. The House recently voted to extend the special session to June 30th. And if no breakthrough is reached in the next few days, the Senate will likely need to do the same or something similar. The good news is that the annual budget, enabling legislation for the Resilient Florida program has been passed, and we're just awaiting the funding levels to be determined and appropriated in the budget. And we remain hopeful those budget levels will be close to the $20 million for planning grants and the $200 million for implementation grants that Governor DeSantis called for in his budget. Therefore, the Resilient Florida program is planning for more or less business as usual. We still expect the grant portal to be open for both planning and implementation grants on July 1st. That is a slight change if you're paying close attention, as we previously planned for the grant portal to be open for planning grants on June 1st, and we've delayed that date to align with the current budget timeline. We also expect the grant portal to be closed and for evaluations to begin on September 1st. And last, we still expect for the projects to be delivered to the governor and the legislature on December 1st with sufficient time for review prior to the 2026 legislative session. Now, all that work depends on the hard work you all do in advance, including the work you'll be doing here today. So again, I'll close by thanking you for your continued engagement, and I look forward to working with you these coming months to build a more resilient future. And I will turn it back over to you, Carolina.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rains. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for continuing to facilitate the resiliency arena. I know you and your team have been helping even on the coordination calls between the water management districts and the Florida Flood Hub. So really appreciate that we can keep the momentum and the coordination that we have already established at the state. As you said, this is not day one. we have a continuous partnership between some of the key groups, and I really appreciate your continuous support to the work we have been doing. With that, I would transition to the district resiliency updates, but before I go, and apologize, Dr. Rains mentioned he is not going to be here to the end of the forum today, so I'm going to just open up in case somebody has any question or a quick follow-up with Dr. Rains. I'm not hearing anyone, Mark, so I think we're good. Thank you again. We'll be in touch soon, and I will transition to the podium there. Okay, good. So again, thank you everyone for being here today. We have a very nice agenda, and we're coming back to the headquarters. We had our February forum replaced by 4 workshops to talk about the plan, the resiliency plan, and receive early input from you all. And we are here today to really launch the plan. We have been working an incredible amount of hours. I got here in this meeting 8:45. I said, wow, this room is all empty and nothing happening. And I'm like, what's happening? And then they said, Carolina, it's moved to 9:30. I'm like, oh gosh, I got 30 minutes, magic minutes, after you have been scrambling to finish something. This 30 minutes was really magic this morning. But anyway, I think we got the right time. Some people had asked us to be able to delay a little bit the start, and I see it's great. Thank you everyone for being here. Happy to receive everyone back here in the headquarters. And thank you everyone as well that attended those workshops early in February, March, that we really went around 4 meetings, and we got extremely great participation, input that we have been incorporating into the draft version that we're going to release today. So I promise the only slide I'm spoiling from your presentation, Dave, is this one. It is the cover of the plan. So we have here the 2025 Sea Level Rise and Flood Resiliency Plan. Again, a very comprehensive update covering most of the urban areas within the Water Management District jurisdiction. We got to the point that we completed those flood vulnerability assessments in a significant portion of our territory, and really happy to be consolidating this plan document this year. Again, thank you all. We have an incredible list of project partners and contributors that have been working with us along those 5 years, right? We are here at year 5. We have been updating the plan, and the plan is really a multiple hands document that have been elaborated through all those years. And I want to really have a special thank you to Carola Bruzaga and Delta teams. They are supporting us this year on this 5th update. They help us organize those workshops. You probably met some of the staff. They were supposed to be here today with us, and because we are literally closing the document and formatting the final PDF, unfortunately, they were not able to join. They were going to share the presentation with Dave, and Dave got the role of presenting all the slides himself. But again, I really want to say thank you for the team that have been helping us to get to where we are today, and still until September 1st when we deliver the final document. They have been instrumental in helping us this year, and their work is extremely valuable to get to where we are getting today. Okay, moving to another update on the project's implementation. We have here a very important deliverable to still our FEMA hazard mitigation ex-BRIC grants. We are delivering the EHP, Environmental and Historical Preservation Package, to FEMA FDEM in about a week, maybe less. Tarwana is there on the back. Again, all those dates seems to match, and we have been working intensively to complete those packages. We have finalized the designs, the permitting design set that we'll be submitting to this in this package. So for all the, so we have 2 packages finalized, the 3rd one coming, 27, 28, 29, respectively C7, C8, C9 resiliency projects. So all those grants for the design portion have been executed, of course, interagency agreements with all the project partners, and also 2 additional MOAs dealing with some of the real estate and partnerships that we needed to implement those projects. We also have DEP, Resilient Florida implementation, so continuing to do the site visits and advance those projects, and 2 more grants that are under review right now. And we have the flood adaptation planning study ongoing from Martin and St. Lucie. And then the Innovative Tech grant is in collaboration with Miami-Dade County. We have the grant agreement executed, the contract agreement executed, and we are getting ready for the bid package that should come out in hopefully a month to get the initiate of the construction of the experimental plot that we're going to be doing for this project. So excited again, a lot of those projects moving into construction, completion of design, and working very closely with engineering team. Tarana and David Griffin on the team have been doing an incredible job and really getting those projects advanced. And as Drew said, navigating into the path of finding the funding and the support that we need for all those projects. So we have been, also as part of these projects, we hosted 2 public workshops. This is a requirement as part of the EHP package deliverable. They were hosted in March and April this year for C7 and C9. Very, again, great feedback and important steps as part of the implementation of those projects. We have, as I said, coordinating site visits to Miami-Dade County, City of North Miami Beach, and FDEP as part of those projects, and really advancing real estate coordination with all those partners that we need right now to be able to implement those projects. As we step and continue to implement those grants, we are working extremely closely with the local mitigation strategy committees in each of the counties, each of our 16 counties. We have our external affairs team attending all the meetings. Thank you all the team. Libby is here, our director. And it seems to be a simple endeavor, and it's not. We have been putting a lot of effort into this. Nicole has been coordinating us to be able to make sure that we are attending those meetings, that our projects are reviewed by them, incorporated into the plans. We are adopting those plans. We have adopted 2 already this year, or near adoption on the second one, and really making sure that the updates that we are bringing to the plan are fully incorporated into those local mitigation strategy plans. We are also working for post-disaster funding on Milton in the Upper Kissimmee Basin area and a few other projects. So deadline is July 2025, and we are undergoing final ranking in some of those local mitigation strategy committees. We have right now 8 projects under award consideration. So DM from Ian, we have 3 projects that finalize the review and are waiting tier 2 allocation. And we have the 2025 Resilient Florida projects. I believe they're still under the final review from the legislative session. And then to get to those projects, again, I mentioned quickly the St. Lucie and Martin County flood protection level of services study. So we are advancing this study. It's a joint phase 1, phase 2. Where we are right now is model calibration reporting. And we hosted a meeting with the counties, I believe, 2 weeks ago. We're going to maintain this coordination meeting. There was a request from the beginning of the project, so we got to a phase that we have a lot of results to be sharing. So excited to be there, and we're going to continue the engagement with the counties. C7 Basin, we are very close to identify additional projects. We have been, of course, advancing the design and implementation of the coastal structure itself in a storage area upstream. But there are additional projects inside this basin that are being now recommended as part of the phase 2 study. And we are right now running the future with project alternatives, and we'll step into the BCA calculations next. Western Basins is another one that we initiated this year, FPLOS phase 1. This is a model calibration report. And then the Taylor Creek, Nubbling Slough, the more recent one, was kicked off just about a month ago on April 25th, and we are on the phase of model selection. So completion of a significant portion of FPLOS studies, and still, of course, some of those that we are working to complete, and the program continues to move at full speed, and really incredible work done by the FPLOS team. Water supply vulnerability assessment update. The water supply team is working in coordination with the resiliency team and modeling teams. We We are right now closing the scenarios, the drought scenarios. We selected 2 scenarios for the simulation that will be run later this summer, fall. So what we're going to do is we are preparing the drought, rainfall, ET, and temperature data. This is the input data that we need to add to the model. This is our East Coast superficial model. It's a groundwater model. In parallel to the groundwater model, we are also doing the runs in the regional model that needs to fit the boundaries of this model. So future land use, future population, public water supply, all those demands are being really simulated on those 2 models, and hopefully to have those runs in the summer this year, initiated in the summer. Moving into the data that feeds all those assessments, we have the Water and Climate Metrics Phase 2 initiated formally. A lot of partners already working on those data analysis that we have prioritized as part of the Phase 2 endeavor. And in this year, what we're going to be publishing in the 2026 South Florida Environmental Report on Chapter 2A is the water year hydrology, water management, and the event summaries like we do every year. And as part of the Phase 2 implementation on Chapter 2B, we're going to be publishing updated long-term trends in rainfall. So our last trend analysis for rainfall ended in 2018, if I'm not wrong, maybe 2016. So we are bringing the data all the way to 2023, and we're going to have updated results. There is also sub-daily analysis that was done that will be incorporated into this full long-term trend analysis for rainfall. So really excited. We have a new approach. Also, we are refining the approach, and Ala is our technical lead, working with Nicole and Stefania. Really exciting to be able to look at the data. As I mentioned, we are also looking at the draw, same data sets, but then looking at the extreme dry. And the team is selecting 2 of those scenarios, so we're going to talk and publish about those findings in the Chapter 2B this year. We have analysis of the frequency of high tide events, long-term as well, and then saltwater intrusion update. The maps were published this year. Last year, 2024, saltwater intrusion maps, and there will be a narrative on this chapter this year. So very important content being advanced by the team, and important dates here is really fall this year. The documents will be open for public comments, and the publication is March next year. As part of the metrics Phase 2, we have also established an internal future climate scenarios work group. As we were stepping into this effort, and we did that when we were projecting future rainfall, we had this understanding that other groups needed to be more fully embedded into the discussion process. And when we start doing the drought analysis and selection of those scenarios, it was very evident that we have several teams in the agency that would benefit from this discussion and helping us to lead to the selection of scenarios that are adequate for the many needs in the agency. So this work group was kicked off basically with this first agenda item on the selection of the drought scenario. We do have rainfall coming. We are looking at the NOAA 15 data, multi-decadal variations, and more as well. So again, thank you for Nicole and Stefania on putting this work group together and all the internal teams that have been attending the meetings. There is a summary of those initial discussions since the beginning of the year. And we are working very closely with the Florida Flood Hub. This is going to be the avenue from our agency to review the work that the Florida Flood Hub is leading on the couple ocean atmospheric statewide regional model. Again, I'm not going to spoil any of our slides. Chuck, you're going to present later today. Still on data, flood observations, high water marks training. We had 7 trainings that we did earlier this year. Libby is going to talk about it and present way more details in her slides. But I want to take this moment just to recognize the team that has been leading this effort. Chris Carson, Madeline, Deanna, Keeling, Nicole, and Aaron they put an incredible amount of hours on preparing those trainings, delivering the trainings. And we were successful again with more than 100 participants this year from multiple areas in our county, and really increasing our capacity to understand when we need to collect data, how to collect data, and the best way to store and really use this data for real time as possible, and then for all the resiliency planning post assessments. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but again, just a reminder of the tools. Libby is going to cover this in her presentation, but again, what we have in advance of the wet season, we have here the links to the flood observations. So where you submit your flood observations, we count with the support from all of you to help us spread the word and really get the reach and really get to the communities to submit this information to the portal there, to the survey app that we have. To view and access the data, it's the second link there, flood resource. We do have a new functionality that Libby is going to be sharing with you all today, very exciting. And then find who to contact. Again, very important. When we see a flooding event, you might think that Water Management District is responsible for addressing them all. It's not. We have 70 plus water control districts, and we have an iterative map there that helps understand who is responsible for what in this very complex management system that we have here. Moving into the two studies, Jenny is going to talk a little bit about that as well, but I'm covering section 203 here. So CNSF flood resiliency studies, Broward Basin, section 203, that's the original REACH A. We hosted a public workshop last month, April 29. We presented the initial array of alternatives. We presented what is going to be the performance metrics under the comprehensive benefits arena to be able to assess benefits from those measures that we are proposing. Very comprehensive set of measures that include not only flood damages, but really environmental quality, social, environmental aspects, and also the regional economics as part of the selection of the plan, the best plan. And we had the draft final array of alternatives also presented in the workshop. Really good to be reaching this step from the ones that have been following. It takes a long time to get here. And we really got to the step of really developing final array of alternatives, which will be shared with public inputs by August. That's our goal. So here is the calendar for the schedule for the plan. We are right now on this refinement of final array of alternatives, and the next step in August will be this recommended plan. We're going to host another workshop and present what are the alternatives in this Broward Basins. And the goal here is to complete the study and publish the final integrated report in May for the adoption for the submission to the WARDA 2026. On the regional 216 study, we are now focusing on REACH C. We received the Army Corps Jacksonville District received the authorization from the endorsement from General Kelly on really continuation of this study and additional funding. It's really great news. They are at full speed now, getting back to assess those basins in Miami. And I know Jenny and team will cover in a little bit, but I'm excited to be putting the teams together to be able to complete this the REACH C assessment as well. So I'm ending my presentation. There is a lot more to come today, so always welcome your suggestions and feedback for the forum meetings, and save the date for the next two this year, September and December. And then we have just a list of some of the relevant upcoming events. We have here the 4th Resilient Conference that's going to happen on September 17, 19 in Charlotte Harbor. They have a call of abstract open until June 2nd. We have concomitant with this Resilient Conference this year, the Southwest Florida Climate Summit. Jennifer is here from SHNAP, and so I believe you also have open abstracts right now, calls. So starting one day ahead, September 16, same location. And then we have the 17th Annual Southeast Florida Climate Leadership Summit. Megan is here, December 16, 17, West Palm Beach. So we have all the links for you all to be informed. And last but not least, next year, Water Institute Symposium, February 24, 26th. They're opening for abstracts soon. I think the call they have now is for sponsorships for the event. They are making this event a 3-day event this year, so larger than the previous years, and excited to be doing the 10th biannual Water Institute Symposium. With that, thank you. I will open up for quick questions, if anybody, or? Okay, if not, I will transition to Libby. Thank you. Okay, so I want to take the moment to also introduce Rich Fimbo. He's our EOC director. Rich, I don't know if you want to come here or just stand up. So this presentation that we're going to be talking about, the wet season preparedness, we develop in partnership with Rich. We also have updates in terms of EOC-related efforts that we're going to be developing this year. So if anybody wants to meet Rich, now know his face. He's joining us here. There will be a slide at the end that we're going to be touching on coordination with the EOC. And Rich is available for questions and answers towards the end of this as well. So thank you, Rich. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Libby Pigman. I'm the External Affairs Director for South Florida Water Management District. And I'm here to give an update. I've done this training before at this forum, but we've got some new tools to add and some updates, so I'm going to do a refresher on it. Today I'm going to be talking about the flood observation tool and some of the local engagements that we've done with local governments and 298 districts. We're going to be going through report flooding and early concerns, and we're going to be discussing the importance of the tools and why we are looking for that collaboration, and then what we're going to do with this data once we collect it. So you can see here, there's your QR code where you can get access to our flooding app, and then there's also, you can access it directly by putting the website into your browser. Just kind of want to cover what is flooding. Flooding is water in areas that are not designed to hold it or where it is not normal for it to occur. I'm sure you all get the calls just as we do. I've got flooding, and then when you drill down and say, what exactly do you mean by flooding? They say, well, there's water in my ditches, or there's water on the road for a short time, and we want to make sure that we say what flooding is and what it is not. So the goal of the flood observation tool is for us to collect and share data that provides real-time information on flood occurrences and supports the documentation of flood events to enhance resilience planning. We've implemented this tool to compile and store the relevant flood information. So we've been conducting training on how to use the tools, and we've been working with our external partners to help collect the data. Once we teach people how to use the tool, then we're starting to receive the data and be able to compile it and share it. We've also done the flood observation and high water mark trainings. We've hosted 7 training sessions across the region throughout the month of April, which was quite a lift for the Resiliency team and our GIS team. But we had 45 employees from the South Florida Water Management District field stations who obviously go out and about. As soon as we get the all clear, they're out assessing our system, and then they're also now using our tool to be able to collect photos and import that data into this tool. We trained 13 individuals from 6 different counties and 31 people from 12 different municipalities. So the word is getting out and people are learning how to use this tool. If you have any questions or you want to submit feedback on the tool, you can use our Resiliency website that's listed on this slide. So this is what the flooding app looks like, what the tool looks like when you go to it. And you have 2 options once you get in there, flooding or flooding concern. Obviously, if it's flooding, you're going to say that, but it could be, I'm worried that this is going to flood. And then we also want you to enter the date that this is happening. And then all required questions are symbolized with a red asterisk. And one of the great things about this tool is that because it's on our cell phones, which we all carry with us, you know, and we can use this as a tool to then take the pictures from your mobile device and be able to upload those files. You don't have to have a picture, but obviously that's what we're trying to collect. And there's a couple of options. You can use the camera icon to take a picture. If the location services are turned on for your camera on your phone, then the location will automatically be uploaded. That's the most desirable because you don't have to put any thought into that. It tells us exactly where you are. If you don't have the location services turned on, you can use the Find My Location icon. And then once you do that, you can accept or adjust the pin location. You can manually enter an address or a street crossroads, and then you can also use our navigation tool to zoom in and zoom out and identify the flooding location. And then the next item is the depth of the flooding. And so you can say less than ankle deep, or I just don't know. I'm not sure how deep it is, but that gives us an idea about about where we are. It's like up to my eyeballs. We can tell that in the other information. And then the next one is, has this location flooded before? You know, you guys get these calls where people say, oh, every time it rains, it does this. Okay, that's good information for us to know. Or it's never done this before. This is, you know, that we've never seen this. And so we're collecting that information as well. And then what type of property? Is this on a farm field, an airport, industrial? Also important information. And then, is there flooding affecting an area? So is a building being flooded? Is it a road? Is it a parking lot? We're collecting that part as well. And then there is an option for people to put their name, their email, and their phone number in there, and a general observation. And so why are we doing this? Why is this important? We are looking to be able to document what's happening. We want to know where it's happening and how often it's happening. And we're using these insights to determine what conditions the flooding occurs. Is it stormwater related or is it tidal? What is causing the flooding? And our goal is to improve communication, collaboration, and coordination between the water managers, the county, and the city governments, and then their local drainage districts on reported conditions. And we want to provide a resource to assist stakeholders and agencies in the evaluation of conditions and the collection of information to assist with mitigation project planning and documentation. So we're going to be able to use this tool to help you be able to support your applications for grants and your stormwater planning process, because we will know throughout the course of time how many reports we're getting. We'll have the photos, we'll have the locations, and you'll be able to use this to support your projects. We are going to use this as an additional data point to assess the overall system performance and flood conditions. We'll use it in our FPLOS modeling to calibrate and validate model simulated overland flood levels and remote sensing analysis to validate estimated flood extent. We will use it in planning to identify areas most vulnerable to recurrent flooding, and it will incorporate it into the South Florida Flood Information Resources. And this repository will allow us to create an inventory, and we have that going all the way back to 1991. And then we will, of course, make that information available to you to support grant applications and other initiatives that require you, when you go through this process and they ask for documentation, we will be able to provide that support to you as well. And in order to use our flood repository, we're going to ask that you register to create an account so that you can access that data. This year, we are have a new portion of the development of the tool is going to be sending out notifications. So when we receive one of these flood observations, we don't just want to hold on to this information. We want to share it with our partners. So when we receive one of these notifications, we are going to be using our local contact notification system to inform flood control partners. It's going to be shared for informational purposes only. So when we send out these notifications, we have received a notification in our system. We haven't verified it, but here it is. We want to share this data with you. We are going to include a URL to our flood information resource application to look at the report. And you must have the account to fully access the report. So you're going to receive a notification, and it's going to tell you where and what it is. But in order to look at the entire tool, you're going to need to have an account to be able to access that. And we're going to be sending out an email very soon regarding training on account creation and application use. So be on the lookout for an email. If you are registered for these forums and you get our notifications, you will be receiving an email about how to register for an account to be able to access that data. This is the screen that you will see when you pull up our resources. And then the local contact viewer, we use that on our website as a way for the public when they want to know, who do I call when I'm having an issue with flooding? And they put in their address, and it will say, oh, this is the area that you're in, and this is your 298 district, this is your municipality, and we have been collecting information from our partners to make sure that we have the right information in that system of who they should contact. So we're gonna be updating that, and we're looking for help from you. If you have changes in that, and you have somebody that leaves and retires, or somebody else that moves into a position, please let us know so we can keep this updated. This is a big lift for us to provide this information, and it's important that we keep it updated because we certainly don't want to send someone who's looking to report flooding to a number that is no longer active or a website that isn't working anymore. So you can see that this is our multitude of information sources. We have the flood data and information that we document the inventory of past floods. We have the high water marks that we're collecting. We have the flood photos and survey information. And we have the flood extents map from satellite or other remotely sensed projects. We have the real-time access to information through the flood reporting tool that will help us know the emerging conditions, and then we have the stakeholder submitted flood observations. We'll be providing regional insights through flood occurrence and recurrence in communities most vulnerable to flooding, and then we will help provide your documentation for your mitigation grants, model calibration and validation, and mitigation project planning. And then, of course, we still have the king tide forecasting. You can see the website there. That's sfwmd.gov/high tide predictions. As the king tide season approaches from September through December, we're continuing our efforts for the monitoring, operational response, and documentation of these events, and we want to share that with you. We're employing advanced tools in our apps and technology and methodologies to collect data, photos, and high water marks to also document high tide flood conditions. So this flood observation tool is not just for storms, it's also for tidal events. And so we're using this information from the flood observation tool to help us make that model even better. And the last thing I want to talk about is a new tool that we're coming up with this year. When we are leading up to EOC activation, we are going to do a coordination call with our local counties. And that's going to be an opportunity for the district to just make sure that everybody knows that the district is in preparation mode, the system conditions, and just go from top to bottom and make sure that everybody's aware that the district is prepared and ready to accept the stormwater that's coming into our system. And then, of course, throughout the event, we are going to be responding and helping with recovery. The external affairs team is deployed to all of the local EOCs, and then we have backups that come in and staff your EOCs. And so we're going to be, throughout the storm and leading up to it, providing information and updates on system status. The county liaisons are going to be making information available to impacted counties. And we're going to be following up if there's a need within your county or municipality and you'd like a follow-up meeting. Please use your external affairs team as resources to be able to help you in the recovery part of your storms. And then any questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Libby. So we're happy to share this call in addition to our 298 regular calls to be able to work closely during the activation with the emergency managers and local county staff. This is new. Again, Rich Fimbo is here, and we have been working very closely with the EOC team to be able to respond effectively and inform our local governments as well, 298 districts. So really happy with this update that was provided. I also want to welcome Libby. She is our External Affairs Director under Normal Operations, and she's joining me as Chief Liaison under EOC Operations. She's going to fill big shoes, because Yvette is leaving and moving back to the EOC clerk functions. She used to be the EOC chief liaison with me. She really guided me and taught me everything I know about my function here since day one. And so thank you, Yvette, for all the efforts that you have been in training us, getting us up to speed to assume this role. And I'm really happy to have Libby sitting with me on this function during EOC activation. So, any questions? Yes, we're going around the table.
So 2 questions. That was an excellent presentation. Thank you so much. Jennifer Hecker, I'm with the Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership, part of the US EPA National Estuary Program, and we serve Central and Southwest Florida. And recently in 2025, our board, which is comprised of the elected leaders of 10 counties, voted to add disaster recovery assistance to our mission. And so we are getting more engaged in that. And I just wanted to see for entities like us that are also government but not local government, is there a way that we could be added to the EOC call list for the counties that we serve so that we can be included on those? Would you be the correct person to follow up with on that?
Yes, and since this is a new tool and we're still kind of formulating what that tool is going to look like and how that call is going to be formatted, I'd be happy to talk that over with you, and we can formulate what would be the right vehicle to deliver that information.
Great. And one other question, and this might be directed to Carolina. It's not just, I know that you all are doing the high water mark surveys, but also counties and CHNEP has been doing those in recent storms on the West Coast. And so we have an ArcGIS survey 123 that's been running, and we've gotten a lot of photos and submissions and information and measurements. We have people try to go out and measure. Is there someone with the district that we should be sharing that information with?
Yes, certainly. So is Aaron from our team here? I think no. So Aaron works with the GIS team under the leadership of Chris Carson, but I'm going to put you in contact with him. He's the first step into bringing the data, and we usually will be able to integrate depending on how the data is structured. And we also, the way that we collect the high water marks, we have been structuring the data to go all the way to DEM. So we want to make sure that, no duplication of efforts, and every data point that we are collecting is brought all the way up to the state. So yes, start with Aaron. I believe he is the right person. We work with Chris and her team in the GIS and find ways that we can integrate the data. That's great. Thank you. Any other questions to Libby? Okay, thank you again, Libby. And now I'm going to transition to Dr. Jacoby from the Florida Flood Hub. We have very exciting updates to also share with you all on this front in partnership with the Florida Flood Hub. And I'm really happy to receive Dr. Jacoby here today. I know we have also scientific liaisons on the back. I'm sure he will introduce you to them. If not, we'll do at the end, but I'm excited to be receiving the Florida Flood Hub today. Thank you very much for coming and joining us in person.
Thank you, Carolina. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about the Florida Flood Hub. Probably should have had the title say introducing the upcoming modeling, because that's about as far as I'm going to get. And while I'm doing introductions, I'll embarrass the 2 scientific liaisons that appeared today. There are 2 more online, so we have 4 total. So Brooke and Lacey are up the back. Lacey's focus will kind of be this South Florida Water Management District, and Brooke will be working primarily with the Southwest Florida Water Management District. Natalie is in Tallahassee, based with Eddie Buza in the Resilient Florida program. And then we also have Heidi, and she'll be working with the St. Johns River Water Management District. So Natalie will primarily work with Swanee and Northwest. But what we're trying to do with these is get this 2-way communication going to the Flood Hub. So, what are we doing, which, I'm talking about today, and then what are some needs that people have that we may be able to address. So we'll have an initial point of contact, but we'll probably treat it as a kind of a team effort. So anyway, all right, so moving on. So work groups are the kind of the core of the way the Flood Hub operates. And the concept here is to get sort of independent groups of experts that will identify, evaluate, synthesize the best available data for Florida. We're going to talk about two today, the sea level change work group and the rainfall work group. So the sea level change work group is the one that's the furthest along. They based their efforts on the data that were assembled for the 2022 federal report. As in many federal reports, the state of Florida tends to get split, and the West Coast goes with Gulf states, and the East Coast goes with the Southeast states, and that's what happened in that report there. And so the concept for the work group was to go into the same data, carve off the other states, as it were, and focus in on what the data told us about Florida. So this graph tries to give you an idea of what that looked like. So in the figure, you have increase in sea level in millimeters on the y-axis. You have distance in kilometers from the west, so headed over towards Louisiana, to the east, up past Jacksonville. And the vertical lines are Florida, right? Pensacola on the left, Jacksonville on the right. And there are components of sea level rise that operate slightly differently in different places. And that's what the colored lines are about. So the blue line is the total. That's adding all the components. The purple line at the bottom is vertical land motion. And as you can see, outside of Florida, outside the two lines, there tends to be a little more vertical land motion contributing to sea level rise. The other major point probably is if you look at the global sea level rise estimate, which is the yellow line, and the blue line, which is the total of the various components for Florida, they're pretty similar. So Florida basically operates and sees the global change in sea level rise primarily. So the regionalization that was done in the federal report sort of shifted their estimates a little bit. And if we compare the two, so on the left you have a comparison of the flood hub estimates are the solid lines in both figures. The dashed line on the left is the Eastern Gulf, as they call it, and so that would head out towards Louisiana. And then on the right, it's the Southeast was in the federal report. So if you look at the dashed or dotted lines, you'll see they're slightly higher, right, than the flood hub estimates. And that's this sort of effect, as it were, of regionalization. But I think one of the probably the major points from the flood hub would be that people should expect estimates to change as the science evolves. So the numbers that you have today may differ as we learn more and do more, and hopefully some of what I talk about through the rest of the talk will help you see why. So what exactly are we talking about in terms of the magnitude of the risk? So this table is an attempt to pull together the information. So the sea level change work group did what the federal report did, where they looked at the models, the global models, and those were broken into 5 scenarios that span the range of what the modeling output looks like, right? So from low, which was targeting a 0.3 meter sea level rise by 2100, to high, which targets a 2 meter sea level rise by 2100. So that's the way the data were pulled together. Then the flood hub work group looked at, well, what happens when we look at the different time horizons from 2000 out to 2070. And the shaded estimates are the ones that the flood hub feels are the most useful, the most likely. And that goes, if you look at it, goes from about 9 inches to about 22 inches. And why do you select those particular estimates, the intermediate, low, and intermediate scenarios, as they call them? So the scenarios are driven by the change in temperature, basically. So when you look at the change in temperature and look at the kinds of temperatures that the modelers predicted might occur, the 3-degree change by 2100, given current emissions, current plans to reduce emissions, the sort of the overall socioeconomic drivers behind the change in temperature, 3 degrees is the one they feel is most likely. And so when then you look at what are called the exceedance probabilities for these scenarios on the left, you can see that the exceedance probabilities for the intermediate, low, and intermediate are kind of that sweet spot, right? Not terribly unlikely or, way likely to be exceeded. And so that's why we're looking at those kinds of changes. The Flood Hub, as was required by the legislation, worked with DEP to translate this information into changes in sea levels at the tide gauges all around Florida. This is an excerpt from the crazy spreadsheet that lives on the DEP website where you can go and get those data. One of the things and there's various time horizons, so for your various planning horizons as you go out, in this case out to 2080, one of the things we're working on is how do we convey the uncertainty that goes with some of these estimates in a way that people might find useful. But those estimates are there. The sea level change work group has some next things they're going to target. So they want to go back and look at those exceedance probabilities, which were generated as part of the federal effort, and make sure that they apply across the various emissions pathways, and also that they apply at all the different time horizons. They're going to look at high tide flooding and flooding due to severe weather and try to incorporate that into the equation. Take a look at the tide gauge data and carefully quality control and quality assure it, and potentially densify the tide gauge network. Tide gauges would help with things like vertical land motion at a local level. So if you have spots that are having a change in the land height, this tide gauge data will help you isolate that and incorporate that into your estimates. And then also look at regional processes, and when I come back around to the modeling, that's where some of that comes from. So the rainfall work group is sort of the second one, as it were, that's underway and working their way through. And what they're trying to look at are what's called change factors. So change factors for design storms. Again, the concept being that warmer air holds more moisture, so you may get more intense rainfall. The way that the thing works is you take the global models, they do a hindcast check to sort of validate their models, and then they do historical scenario and various scenarios as warming occurs. And then when you compare those modeled warming scenarios to the historical one, you can calculate a change factor, essentially a multiplier for a design storm. So here, this graphs some of the change factors. This is for what's called CMIP-5, which is the global comparison that was done earlier, and it was where the work group started. But not that long ago, and sort of in midstream, as it were, CMIP-6 results came out, so they redid the global modeling. And so this shows you the comparison of the various ensembles, as they call them, of the outputs from the models. So the medians are the dots. That's the median change factor. So you take your design storm and multiply it by that 1 point, whatever it might be. And the bars are the 17th and 83rd percentiles. Just to give you some idea of the model spread, you want to avoid trying to think of them as statistical uncertainty because the results, the outputs of the models are not really independent of each other. So calculating a real statistical bound on uncertainty is very challenging. What you see here is just for a couple of what are called RCPs. That's the way they used to do things. And so those were driven by the modelers that did the atmospheric work. And that's a change in the radiative forcing of 4.5. But now the way that drivers go is to go to shared socioeconomic pathways, which tries to take the modeling all the way back to the way governments are handling emissions and tries to draw that whole sort of socioeconomic impetus into the actual modeling of atmospheric and oceanic conditions. So that's what the labels are. This is 2040 and 2070 data. What the work group sort of did was take a look at this. The three ensembles to the left, those are the CMIP-5 ensembles, and the two to the right are the CMIP-6 ensembles. So the work group took a look at the data, gave it some thought, said, well, it looks like, first of all, they didn't carry on with the CMIP 5 ensembles, so everybody said, well, okay, that's kind of a dead end perhaps. And second of all, the CMIP 6 ensembles are a little more consistent internally, as it were. So a lot of this is what they're called statistical downscaled data. So the global climate models really don't see Florida in a sense because the scale is too coarse. And so the outputs are taken and statistically downscaled to get to the correct resolution for Florida. And so anyway, so what they decided to do was pursue CMIP 6, which meant a change in the reports or the outputs. The next thing are there are 2 ensembles in CMIP 6, what's called LOCA 2 and NASA, and they have different types of downscaling. And the work group considered these and decided that they would go with LOCA 2 because that's a more modern, as it were, and people felt a more reliable approach to downscaling. So that's where the focus went. I mean, again, this is the same sort of graph with the medians and the 17th and 83rd percentiles. So we're focusing on LOCA 2 and CMIP 6. And this gives you an idea of what that looks like. And in this case, there are 27 sort of models that go into the ensemble. And the medians that we get from that range from 1.03 to 1.16. So that's a 3% to a 16% change in the rainfall for a design storm. We looked at design storms 1, 3, 7 days. We looked at the 5, 10, 25, 50, 100, and 200 year return intervals. As you head out towards 100, 200, and 500 year return intervals, you can see that the spread of the models gets fairly wide. So that's the kind of uncertainty that accompanies those predictions. In this case, just trying to give you some idea of what the outputs will look like. One of the other concerns was, is there a spatial pattern in the change factors? Is there a reason to expect them to change differently across the state? So in this case, numbered the 242 Atlas 14 stations where the change factors are calculated for those stations. Numbered them from the northwest to the southeast, put them in order from left to right on those graphs, plotted all of the change factors for each of those stations, which are the blue bubbles. And then did a low S smoothing curve through that to kind of see if is there a consistent spatial pattern. And if you look here, so you have a SSP 2 4.5 2070 on the left and SSP 5 8.5, so a little more extreme change in temperature 2070 on the right. And if you look at those red lines, there's not a really consistent sort of spatial pattern in there. Plus the change in the red line, as it were, and if there is any upswing or downswing, is relatively small compared to the spread of the values for the stations. So at this point, looking at one set of change factors for all the various combinations of drivers and durations and return intervals, rather than having different ones for different parts of the state. And the debate was interesting because the debate often switched to talking about rainfall variation, right, which everybody knows is there, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the change in the rainfall. So the pattern in the rainfall is not what the change factor is on about. It's an increase in rainfall. Then one of the other questions was, what did this sort of make sense with the basic physics? And the basic physics are the Clausius-Clapeyron equation, which says, you get about a 7% increase in water vapor for each 1 degree C rise in atmospheric temperature. So it took some predicted temperatures and said, well, let's get the 7%, and that's the red line, and then compared them to the LOCA 2 data. And so again, we're not seeing things here where the medians are completely out of line with the core physics. There's obviously more that goes into the models than just that core physics, so you don't expect them to be identical, as it were. There's a lot more going on there. But there was no need to kind of cull change factors based on this basic physics. So, summary, CMIP 6, LOCA 2 only. keeping the SSPs individual, so trying to give people that range of variation. So the recommendation will be probably don't march up the bars on the median to get a higher value if you're a little bit risk averse, but shift to a different SSP. So stick with the median because that's the most likely value, and just shift SSPs if you're concerned, as it were. Statewide values, yes. Any culling of change factors, probably not, because the medians look consistent. And now the next change that came along while we were in the midst of all this is that the Resilient Florida program is now going to be looking for 2050 and 2080 estimates. And so we have to go back and recalculate to generate those, which has been made harder because South Florida Water Management District stole the person who was doing that work at the USGS. And so we're working to figure out a way to make this happen.
I invited her supervisor to be here.
So phase 2 for this work group is where the modeling comes in. So when you look at the global models, they're not really informative at the scale that's necessary to do Florida, sort of 2 to 4 kilometers scale. So what we're trying to do with the modeling is to have finer resolution for some of the effects that are more localized, and there's a list there. But we're also trying to retain those large-scale drivers, right? So what we're trying to do is couple these models and sort of march our way down from the global models to a localized model. So in conjunction with DEP, DOT, the South Florida Water Management District, we're working with the University of Miami, Florida State University, and USGS to do this model coupling. So the first step will be at the University of Miami, where they'll use the community Earth system model to downscale, in a sense, to improve the resolution of the modeling from the global models to about 25-kilometer atmospheric and 10-kilometer oceanic grids. That will allow them then to sort of resolve things like the Gulf Stream, which you see on the right-hand figure that you don't see in the CMIP-6 output because it doesn't have the resolution to find the Gulf Stream. Those results get handed off to Florida State that will use their regional spectrum model and the regional ocean system model combination to bring down the resolution to about 10-kilometer grids. On the left is precipitation in millimeters today, 3 figures showing you what actually was observed, what the broader scale model from University of Miami will do, and then you can see it's kind of smoothed out, so you see the absence of the green, the really higher values. And then the combination models, bring that back. And so we'll be able to find the fine scale. And the right-hand thing is just looking at bias. And so what happens is if you take both models in conjunction and coupled with each other, that's the far right-hand figure, and the colors get lighter, and the darker the color, the more bias there is. So we're removing some of the bias. Seasonal bias is particularly important. And then those outputs get handed off to the USGS, and they will use their weather research and forecasting skills to take it down to the 2 to 4 kilometer grid we're looking for. And so the figures here, the animation shows you some rainfall on the left. You can see the changes in soil moisture and the changes in air temperature that accompany those rainstorms as they pass through. And again, that's at a resolution that will be of more value to Florida than the global models will be. So overall, the approach is pretty similar in a sense, a reference period to kind of make sure everybody's model is calibrated the same, as it were. Then a set of historical ensembles, so 5 by 10 year simulations, a set of an ensemble for the 2-degree warming, and an ensemble for 3-degree warming. And then you can take the outputs from the warming scenarios, as it were, and compare them to the historical one, and that generates your change factor. FloodHub's also doing some other tasks, one of which is, again, comes from the South Florida Water Management District, where they had started this model management system to track their H&H models. And the Flood Hub will be, so that got expanded by the Silver Jackets from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as one of their sort of Florida projects. The Florida GIO has created a dashboard, and we'll be taking that dashboard and tweaking it a bit and putting that on our upcoming website, as it were. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Super excited to be hearing, especially those last 3 slides. Those are all new endeavors. We work 4 years to get here with the support from FSU, USGS. We also had the support from the Water and Climate Alliance at UF, the Water Institute at UF, to really be able to get the proposal into a place, describe what was the need, identify what was the resources, and having the Florida Flood Hub now finally hosting and leading this effort is key for the state. So extremely excited for the kickoff of this effort. We have all the contracts, or maybe just one pending contract in place to develop those studies, and very great information that we're going to be using to really enhance risk-informed decisions in our state. So thank you very much, Chuck. So going around the table for questions on all the updates from the 3 work groups. Okay. As I mentioned, our goal is to always invite the universities and the Florida Flood Hub to be also coordinating with us. We will have discussions as part of our future scenarios work group as well, so we can have internal review from the agency, also fulfill the grant requirements that we have with DP, and bring updates to you all whenever we are making progress on those 3 FSU, USGS efforts. So we'll certainly bring them here as well as we advance this study. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break, 10 minutes break for us to be able to stretch the legs a little bit before we jump into the final 2 presentations. And let's come back at, let's do 55, 5 to 11. Thank you.
the thing, it depends, you told me in the morning they were gonna be there, right? Is there, can you give me more of a definite time of when they'll be there? Okay, so what we could do, let's keep it, but it can't pass, noon. So what I'll do is, if they can call me 30 minutes prior of them arriving, I'll head back, I'll come to work, then head back when they call me. Okay? Okay, perfect. All right, thank you so much. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Hi, we're going to be resuming the meeting shortly. If you can please take your seats, we'll be resuming the meeting.
Okay, we are getting back. I know Dave probably is excited to be able to give this presentation. As I said, we have been working extensively on this update. So with that, I will invite Dave Colangelo. He's our Resiliency Plan Coordinator to share the 2025 updates with us. Thank you, Dave.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here today. I'm going to be presenting the 2025 Sea Level Rise and Flood Resiliency Plan. It's the 5th year, so it's kind of a milestone for us, and we're excited about it. First, I just want to thank the project team. We have an interdisciplinary team from 13 different business areas at the district that helps put together the plan every year, and without all these different contributors, we wouldn't have the coordinated plan that we have. Also want to acknowledge our project partners. We've received comments and assistance from all of these different local governments, NGOs, tribes, state agencies, federal agencies, planning councils, universities, and private entities. So we've gotten a lot of information over the past 5 years from all these different partners, and we've tried to incorporate it into the plan. Today's outline, I'm going to start with background and goals. Then I'll talk about the plan structure and the different chapters. And for each of the plan chapters, I'll talk about stakeholder comments that we received. So I'll give you a sample of the types of comments that we received at our public workshops. And then the last part will be timelines and next steps. So the goal for the 2025 plan is to create a robust plan with all the latest project information. We spent more time this year on internal review. Also, to obtain early input from our partners and stakeholders, we held 4 public workshops across the district, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. This is the most comprehensive version of the plan to date. We have completed flood protection level of service studies in most of the urban areas in South Florida at this point. However, we want to emphasize that this is a living document, and we'll continue to add projects and update it as needed. We've also taken the opportunity to strengthen the alignment of the plan with the statewide plan, and I'll talk a little bit more about that too. Finally, future updates of the plan will occur on a 5-year cycle, so we'll continue working on the plan and updating it every year, but it won't be published every year anymore. It'll be every 5 years. The goal of the plan is to reduce the risks of flooding, sea level rise, and other climate impacts on water resources, and increase the resiliency of water management infrastructure, community, economy, and ecosystems in South Florida. So, justification for the plan. Florida Statute 380 established the Resilient Florida Program, which ensures a coordinated approach to Florida coastal and inland resilience. The statute requires the district to submit the plan to FDEP each year by September 1st. We also need to submit a consolidated report to the Governor's Office, Senate, House, DEP, Office of Economic and Demographic Research by October 1st each year. So I'll talk a little bit about how projects get into the plan, and I'll give you some examples. So projects are added to the plan in 6 main ways. Flood protection level of service studies, phase 2 studies, the Central and South Florida flood control resiliency studies that are ongoing with the Corps, the flood protection level of service phase 1 studies, event response, capital improvement plan considerations, and innovative projects. And I'll touch on each of these in the following slides. The map on the right side of the slide shows the location of our priority projects also. The Flood Protection Level of Service program is the district's strategy for assessing the impacts of land development and changing climate on flood control infrastructure. Most of the projects in the plan were developed from these studies. The studies from the program evaluate current and future flood risks to South Florida. They include predefined performance metrics that support decision-making on prioritization and sequencing of projects. The FPLOS program, their motto, I'd like to say that their motto is to safeguard tomorrow, today. Another way that projects get into the plan are the Central and South Florida flood resiliency studies. An integrated strategy has been developed to advance feasibility studies and initial designs for critical flood infrastructure projects. There's a lot of information on the slide, but that's the main idea here. Event response is another way projects get into the plan. For example, after Hurricane Ian, there were 6 projects that were identified based upon observed vulnerabilities in the system. We'll be submitting these projects for grant funding under FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, which is administered through the Florida Department of Emergency Management. We'll also be submitting some projects this year under the Hurricane Milton disaster declaration. Another way projects get into the plan are through the district's capital improvement plan. It helps to identify projects that are needed to keep the system operating effectively and efficiently. The CIP projects often mesh with resiliency needs, and therefore they're integrated into our implementation strategy. The idea is to coordinate with the capital improvement plan so we only touch a project once and get everything done at once. And here are some examples of mitigation solutions that are developed through each project source. So we have seawall protection, forward pumps, emergency detention basins, canal bank enhancements, flood barriers, flap gates, and of course, green infrastructure and nature-based features. Integrating local, regional, natural, inland drainage, and coastal flood resiliency strategies. So this slide is kind of an overview. It shows all the different structural and non-structural strategies that can be employed to reduce flood risk and make living with water acceptable. This is a nice picture, I believe is from the Corps of Engineers. So the resiliency plan, there are 12 chapters and 2 appendices, and I'll touch on each of the chapters next. As I go through the chapters, I'm going to also show examples from our public comments that we received during the 4 public meetings that we had in February and March. Chapter 1 is the district's resiliency vision. The resiliency vision is to reduce risk while maximizing effectiveness. We make sure to have resources for the project planning and management in place. We take future conditions into consideration. And we also take into consideration population and critical infrastructure in order to ensure community-wide benefits and protection of community lifelines. Public engagement is very, very important to us, and we hold resiliency forums like this quarterly, as well as public workshops for specific projects and planning projects as needed. We believe that ecosystem restoration is the key to resiliency in South Florida, and that restored ecosystems are resilient by nature. So ecosystem restoration is something the district does very well, and we're behind that. We aim to incorporate nature-based solutions into our gray infrastructure designs as well. So an example of a stakeholder comment that came up: collaboration across organizations, clear communication, and a unified voice were identified as key to building trust, maintaining momentum, and sharing the latest and greatest information through the planning process. So this year, we're striving to better align the district's resiliency plan with the statewide flooding and sea level rise plan. The district's resiliency plan adds to the state plan by providing a regional perspective on building resiliency and prioritizing investments. The district aims to facilitate integration of state and federal resources into local plans to align regional, locally relevant and effective structural, non-structural, and nature-based features. Chapter 2 focuses on current challenges and limitations in the system on the central and southern Florida and Big Cypress Basin systems. Challenges include population growth, land development, extreme rainfall, and sea level rise. The chapter also describes the district's capital improvement plan in more detail, and it's important to note that the capital improvement program helps to feed into the flood protection level of service program, which I'll talk about it also in a little bit. Chapter 3 is a new chapter this year that was developed. It's about science and data to inform resiliency planning. It focuses on the water and climate metrics that inform resiliency planning. Phase 1 of the process was to analyze and determine climate trends using available data, and phase 2 includes refining and expanding the assessment of changing conditions. And I think you'll find it interesting if you're interested in the nuts and bolts of resiliency planning and the data that goes into it. This is an interesting chapter. Chapter 4 focuses on the flood protection level of service program and CNSF studies that I mentioned earlier. Phase 1 consists of assessing the level of flood protection provided by existing infrastructure under current and future development and different sea level scenarios, and that's on a 10-year cycle. Phase 2 identifies solutions to the vulnerabilities. This chapter also has a description of the flood impact assessment tool that we use to help support recommendations for flood mitigation and adaptation measures by providing cost-benefit analysis for implementing priority infrastructure projects. Oops, I just went too far, didn't I? Okay. So this slide shows the flood protection level of service results for current and future conditions for studies along the East Coast, Big Cypress Basin, and Upper Kissimmee Basin. So one of the comments that we received on the flood protection level of service program: enhanced data collection, flood vulnerability assessments, resiliency studies, and the promotion of nature-based solutions and community education are essential to strengthen infrastructure planning and response. Chapter 5, we've enhanced Chapter 5 this year, and it's all about nature-based solutions. Nature-based solutions reduce flood risk using natural processes, and some examples include reconnecting floodplains, wetland restoration, living shorelines, and bioswales, just to name a few. The district's goal is to integrate these nature-based features into our traditional flood infrastructure projects in order to collect, store, and slow the flow whenever possible. So workshop participants in the nature-based solution breakout group emphasized the growing need for nature-based solutions to address environmental impacts from increasing development, particularly as impervious surfaces expand and strain water quality and restoration efforts. So there's a lot of interest in adding nature-based features to our projects. Chapter 6 describes the ongoing ecosystem restoration projects that the district's working on, a lot with the Corps of Engineers. These projects help to increase resiliency by reducing flood impact, protecting water supply, providing enhanced hydrology for environmental restoration efforts. Ongoing SERP projects also help to restore, preserve, and protect water resources throughout the region. Chapter 7 is all about water supply. The goal is to understand and assess water supply vulnerabilities to future conditions and to protect existing water supplies. Also to develop alternative sources and store excess water whenever possible. This chapter links to Appendix B, which describes the approach for water supply vulnerability assessment that'll be done in the future. Public comment was, one of the public comments was maintaining a reliable water supply while managing increasing flood risks emerged as a key topic. Chapter 8 is all about ranking our projects and characterizing our projects. So it describes how we rank priority projects, and the ranking system has 4 different tiers. There's likelihood of system deficiency, consequence of system deficiency, project benefits, structure inspection program rating, and capital improvement plan status. So all of those factors go into the rating process. And I included this slide just to show how the district is aligning our ranking criteria with the state's Resilient Florida criteria. Again, showing how we're further aligning the district's resiliency plan with the statewide plan. Project impact areas and project locations. So this slide shows how we associate an impact area with a project in order to perform ranking. So based upon the size of the basin. The Resiliency team has created a public GIS project that defines our project impact areas and also provides layers of other planning information. And you can find that on our Resiliency website. Public comment. Discussions revealed both the challenges and opportunities of coordinating across diverse jurisdictions and highlighted the value of shared data platforms like GIS dashboards. So, Florida Department of Environmental Protection recently incorporated all the district's infrastructure, meaning canals, structures, pump stations, et cetera, into their critical asset database. And these critical assets are taken into consideration during the ranking process. So it's another variable in the ranking process. So the public comment that we highlighted here, alignment of planning approaches and outreach efforts across municipal, county, and state levels was seen as essential for consistency and scalability. And Chapter 9 also has been updated as of 2025, and it describes the district's planning projects. Resiliency planning is everything that happens before implementation, and that really just means using data. Management of water resources is founded on decades of monitoring, and that foundation guides the plan. Studies and assessments inform the development of adaptation strategies, and planning studies help to formulate future scenarios such as extreme rainfall, king tides, and drought. Hydrology and hydraulic modeling is the final step in planning, and that helps us to identify projects. So the public comment for this, for planning studies, participants proposed incorporating storm surge modeling and economic loss projections into ranking criteria to strengthen the case for funding and better reflect regional risk. So all of these public comments, these are just a few, but we're taking them all into consideration, incorporating them into the plan as needed. Chapter 10 is all about our implementation projects, and this is also a new chapter. It represents the adaptations and strategies that we develop through our planning processes, and this slide summarizes new priority projects in the plan this year. We've added cost estimates and project descriptions for 8 types of project components, and we now have a total of 43 main projects, which are really like basins. Is it 52 now? Update, 52. With a total of, is it still 88 components, Carolina? Or is it more now? So, Oh, it's on the slide. I'm reading from my notes, sorry. 52 and 162. Participants discussed establishing risk thresholds and enhancing the security and redundancy of utility infrastructure systems. That's the public comment that we highlighted here. And finally, we have Chapter 11, and Chapter 11 describes our projects that are under implementation. The map shows locations of our implementation projects, and the graphic shows how we coordinate with local, state, and federal entities to move toward implementation. For implementation projects, the key themes included synchronizing implementation schedules, managing large-scale project portfolios, and improving transparency around how and when projects move from planning to construction. And then a little bit more about the workshops. We had 4 workshops with a total of 201 attendees. We held the workshops on the Lower East Coast, Upper East Coast, Southwest Coast, and the Upper Kissimmee Basin. We had good turnout at all of them. And I also wanted to reiterate that this is the 5th iteration of the district's resiliency plan, and that we're going to continue to update it, but it'll only be produced every 5 years, published. And this slide just highlights, it's the public comments that we received at the workshops. It's kind of a summary document, and it's available through our website. So if you go to the Resiliency website, you'll be able to find this. Timeline and next steps. So we held the public workshops in February and March. That's done. And we received early input and incorporated that into our plan. The draft plan is being presented today, and it's going to be released after I finish, after this meeting today. And it'll be open for public comments until June 20th. In July and August, we'll follow up on comments that we receive and incorporate them into the plan as needed. And then the plan is due to be submitted to DEP on September 1st. And final slide here, the draft plan is going to be available at the Resiliency, on the Resiliency website, and here's the link. Again, the public comment period ends June 20th, and you can provide your comments by email to resiliency@sfwmd.gov. And that is all I have for you today, and be happy to take any questions.
Yes, thank you, Dave. The final count was done yesterday night, so that's why we see it. And we were cleaning up this morning. Okay, so yes, go ahead, let's go.
Well, first, I just want to congratulate the team on this outstanding work, and we at CHDP reviewed the plan and really saw the incredible effort and analysis that went behind it. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate a comment that we made in our technical comment letter for the next iteration of this plan, which I understand is going to be in 2030. But, you know, one of the things that was kind of apparent to us is that the type of focus that was getting highlighted in the plan for Southeast and for Collier on the West Coast, really, we would have other communities that would benefit from having that type of resiliency planning, including taking things that are already being done in some of the counties like Polk, Highlands, Hardy, DeSoto, Charlotte, Lee counties, Glades and Hendry, and trying to pull those in because a lot of things we're working on with the district, like the Lower Charlotte Harbor Flatwoods Initiative, the South Lee County Watershed Initiative, are really about flood protection as well as environmental restoration. Because natural lands can be very effective at holding waters, recharging the aquifers, cleansing that water, and protecting downstream communities. And we are seeing in the Peace River watershed, for instance, that has been hit multiple times in recent years from extreme weather events, that, you know, there are a lot of fiscally constrained counties and communities that are really suffering now from and need the assistance with resiliency like never before. The Peace River, for instance, in Hurricane Ian rose 19 feet higher than ever recorded previously in history in any prior storm. So the floodplains fanned out and swamped many smaller rural communities all the way up that watershed. And so I just really encourage the district to build on the great work you've done for Southeast Florida and for Collier to address these other counties and the district's territory that really need your assistance and help in furthering their own resiliency efforts. Thank you.
Excellent comment. Carolina, do you want to say anything about that?
Here. So yes, I mean, we have been working with you and learning a little bit from you. The tools and resources that we have available are out there. What we need is to be able to complete those vulnerability assessments, first step. So I know you're making extremely a lot of progress you're going to share with us, hopefully on the next forum, on those areas. We need to leverage all those findings from those initial assessments. We do not have necessarily operations in these areas, which stops us from doing very advanced FPLOS assessments, for instance, which would build up to the assessments that you were doing, but that doesn't stop us from taking advantage of existing tools, data, help on scenario formulation, helping to assess the findings from all those assessments that you are doing. We receive a significant number of requests to sit in steering committees from those plans to just provide input, and we have people on the teams, our modeling team, the resiliency team, that sits and is there just to share. Like, we have this data, we have this information, we have this tool that can perhaps add to the analysis. So I think the first step is this, really making sure that we can have those assessments advanced. We also ask for Resilient Florida planning funds in collaboration with Lee County, for instance, to be able to bring a little bit more of those modeling tools in areas that we do not have direct operation, but it's still some of the flood resiliency strategies that we need to identify are there, right? So, and I would say as soon as we are able to get those assessments completed, sit down and align again, priorities on projects, what are that is needed there. I know we'll learn a lot from the CWI and similar efforts as well. So I think we just need to get those assessments done, sit down and start like brainstorming what would be the projects, what would be the priorities, and we can do that in coordination with the counties. Let's plan. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Alana Irwin, a Sustainability and Resiliency Administrator for the City of Boynton Beach. First, I want to thank the district for all of the hard work in the flood resiliency and all the efforts to put this plan together. It's going to be great, I think, for all of us in the region to be able to help improve collaboration and partnerships. One question I have is actually pertaining to the water supply vulnerability assessments. Is the district planning to do similar workshops with local utilities, local governments or stakeholders that have a vested interest in the water supply? I say this because the workshops that you guys put together for this plan were extremely effective, and I think this could be another opportunity. If you guys aren't planning to do that, I think it would be a great, if you guys are planning to do that for the workshops.
I would definitely discuss with the team that is leading the effort. I'm sure they would be open for those workshops and findings. They have right now an expert panel that they work with representatives from utilities that review the work that they are doing, the assumptions on the modeling side. We're just not far ahead to have results yet to share, so I think they're still coordinating with this technical peer review committee. But as soon as we start having those results and I mean findings that we should be able to discuss and get input and how we need to brainstorm in terms of the results, right? We have no idea yet on what's coming. We need to run the models, be able to assess what's coming out and then formulate a plan. But yes, engaging with the utilities is certainly something that we should be able to do and we would be interested in doing as well. There is a lot that we'll learn from this process.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I wanted to, you said we're going to publish the resilience plan every 5 years, but as far as adding projects or, you know, where projects are in the process, is that going to happen more often?
Yes, and I know you're coming with your question because the San Lucia PLOS is not yet completed. We are there, and of course, we are mapping this important. That's the next step in terms of projects identification that we are mapping, San Lucia and Martin projects. So yes, the plan will not be updated. All this effort in terms of producing a document and all of that, no. But we'll have this parallel list of projects that will be updated every year with the findings from the level of service, CNSF studies. I mean, we're up to speed, and Jennifer and team will come soon. There is a lot happening on this arena as well that we will need to be able to update to at least show project status, new projects, and where we are in terms of implementation for all of those efforts. So yes, no plan, no document, but the list of projects, and we are making it interactive on the web. So the plan is to have at least the GIS project updated every year with the points representing all the projects that belong to the plan. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Tom Lanahan, Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. Two comments, I guess, both related to the green infrastructure aspects. Really excited to see that as a key part of this conversation. The first one is I would hope that you're working to integrate those ideas into the permitting process so that folks are receiving appropriate credit for taking those measures compared to, you know, standard gray infrastructure approaches. And then the second is I'd like to see some of those green infrastructure pieces incorporated more into the drainage that comes with transportation projects. You know, we see typically the retention lakes that get built with a road are just, you know, a grass square with none of the other plants that I know a lot of local governments require around those retention areas. So I think, you know, if there's assistance that the Water Management District can do in your requirements for those things, I think that would be a big help for, you know, water uptake and slowing the flow of the water and some of those different aspects. So thank you.
Thank you for the question. This is so relevant, and I would say that, yes, we definitely are looking into this, both on the permitting side, very initial conversations. There is a lot to go. I think there is a lot of agencies really leading this discussion from the permitting side. There was a group led by TNC that started a few years ago to be able to step into this regulatory side. On the planning side, that is a lot of the efforts that we do. Interesting that you even mentioned DOT, because our goal this year was to have one more layer of overlap with our projects and DOT projects, because what you are describing is exactly what we are seeing. And not only that, but it overlaps with the things that we are planning. Like, I mean, when we are talking about a canal enhancement, for instance, there are opportunities to leverage what DOT might be doing, or storage areas that they are planning as part of their stormwater needs, versus what we are talking here in terms of flood protection and tying that to the overall system. So we did a very initial analysis overlapping projects from DOT. They have we look at 2 projects, and I don't know if we can have James Poole talk about it. We have monthly calls. We did this initial assessment that is basically a GIS overlap of what DOT projects are and what some of our projects are, and how we could take advantage of this and find synergies. But to be honest, we didn't advance as much as we wanted to advance to be able to have a solid description of what can we get out of that. But definitely it's on the list of to-do items. We saw a path. There is definitely ways that we could work more and identify those potential synergies. And I think all of that translate not only on really critical flood infrastructure projects and storage and stormwater, but also, as you mentioned, the link to nature-based features and how we can take advantage of those, because there is plenty of opportunities to bring those innovative nature-based solutions associated with this type of projects. So that's where we see the largest potential. So I don't know, James, if I don't want to put you on the spot, don't have to, but anyway, it's just interesting to hear this question.
I'm curious, he mentioned something about like landscaping, trees and swales to reduce the runoff, the discharge downstream. Is that the idea?
Yes, that'd be part of it, and then you know, the ecological aspects also, and you know, maintenance requirements and some of those different things that, you know, these areas could be maybe designed a little bit differently to incorporate some of those things. And it's not just FDOT, but it's, you know, county roadway jobs and those kind of things as well. So.
Yeah, we see that more in like our city projects. On occasion, we'll have a local street effort, bioswales, that sort of thing. But by the interstate, it's a little bit harder when you're trying to keep things out of the clear zone, you know, for safety.
Anyone else? Yeah, Christian.
Thanks so much to the team. We look forward to seeing this plan come out every year, and love to see the alignment with the Miami-Dade County priorities. You mentioned there's a new chapter that shows projects, sort of the description and the cost estimate. Can you just re-explain or clarify how that list of projects, why you're putting that out in this version of the plan, and whether those are ranked in the same way that I guess there's another project list that's for, and just describe the differences between those project lists?
Yeah, if you want to, sure.
Okay, let me try. So we always had a list of projects in the plan. In the first versions, it was part of the plan. We moved to the appendix last year. So the appendix this year has all the list, that's the 162 project components. So a project description, the basic location information, cost estimates, high-level cost estimates, and the projects that do not have any feasibility assessment are clearly identified as conceptual there. That was also something that we brought very clear to this year plan, because some of those projects are very initial recommendations still, and I would say from the 162, probably 150 or maybe 130, 40, because we are still on phase one assessment, right? So to run a model with that project recommendation and really do the BCA, test the future with that project, assess all the potential impacts, and validate a BCA. This is when I'm talking about the feasibility that still needs to be done on all those project components. Where we have assessments like Broward Basins, Miami, through the CNSF efforts, the post-disaster efforts in the Upper Kissimmee Basin, we are doing that. So we are going to bring, I would say, potentially 15 projects that are now under this. I think it's even more, maybe 20 projects that are now under those efforts. We're going to take them all to a basis of design level. Like we have the initial design, we are ready to begin really getting the construction funds aligned. So all of this information is there now. You're going to be able to see, and there are 3 places. So the first place you see is going to be on the appendix. Go project by project and just pay attention on what's conceptual, what's not. On the introduction to the implementation projects, we talk a little bit about how they come, how we do those feasibility assessments, and then the new chapter is what we are talking about, the ones that are really in implementation. So we have 3 tables there that are just kind of breaking them apart and talking about the ones that we're moving to basis of design, the ones that are still on a little bit earlier stages, the one that we have completed design, and the ones that are under construction. So I hope it helps to understand, but we are just trying to kind of show the progress we're making in some projects under this new chapter, but not removing them from the plan, because at this point, to be honest, none of them are fully completed. At some point, those projects will be fully completed, and we can maybe just find a place where we have a repository of projects. But right now, the plan has projects that are under construction but not yet completed, and we are showing all the status there as well. All of them are ranked. We rank them by major project and not by component. So when you see our list, you're going to see about 50 projects ranked. The components are embedded into the ranking, so we don't rank the 162, we rank the 50 projects.
And I'll just add that the chapter that used to have the projects listed with their descriptions and cost estimates, that now doesn't have that information. That's all in Appendix A with the project descriptions, but the chapter is still there, and it describes the assumptions that we make when we're developing projects. So it kind of gives you an overview of how we develop projects before presenting them in the appendix. Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we're going to go to the last agenda item for the day before we go around the table. But I would like to invite Jenny and Tim Geisen. I'm not sure who's going to take the lead in presenting first, but they do have. Tim, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Great. So I'll turn it to you.
Okay, great. So good morning, everyone. Tim Geisen with the Corps of Engineers here. I apologize I couldn't be down there in person today. In addition to my resilience and integration role here at the Corps, I've also am now the acting section chief for our ecosystem project section. I'm also now responsible for half of CERP, so got a lot going on. So again, apologies I couldn't be there in person today. But I wanted to just give you a quick overview, kind of all the work we've got going on, and then a couple of specifics on the CNSF flood resiliency and the Shingle Creek effort. So if you go to the next slide. All right, this one I use a lot, but I just want to kind of reiterate that resilience is, as Colonel Bowman likes to say, a team sport. It takes all of us working together with common goals and objectives to really accomplish a resilient community, resilient not only locally, but throughout South Florida. And each of us play those roles. And I think you can see by some of the presentations we've had today that what some of those roles are. I think it's really important for forums like this for us to be able to communicate what's going on, and as we identify projects, especially through things like the Sea Level Rise and Resiliency Plan, the local vulnerability assessments, where we can kind of identify what everybody's roles are and maybe identify partnerships that will help expedite some of those efforts. So I think that's really valuable. So I just like to reiterate in every time I talk that communication is really the key to this. So everybody that's there, everybody that works in resilience is part of that communication. There's not one person in every organization that's really focused on all of this. It takes all of us working together to really do that coordination and build those that organic kind of spider web of connections and figure out how we can work better in partnership. All right, so next slide, please. So, all right. So with that, I just want to talk a little bit about all the work the Corps has going on all over South Florida across all of our different business lines. So we've got, as you can see from the map on the left, and hopefully it's really big in the room there, so you'll be able to see it, but there's a lot going on there. As you can see up and down the coast, we have authorized coastal storm risk management projects that are active. And those are beach projects typically, but we do have a couple of the back-based studies going on, which you can see down in the Dade County area, both with Key Biscayne and the Miami-Dade back-based study. We also have a new beach CSRM project that's in the feasibility phase over in Collier County, that turquoise dot there on the West Coast. All that work is kind of that first line of defense, whether it's beach renourishment or dunes or any of the beach work that we do to help protect the coastal communities from the impacts of storm surge and as well as sea level rise. We also have several large port projects, which kind of gets into that economic resilience. So Port Everglades and the Port of Miami are both ongoing efforts to do port expansion to really allow those ports to continue to provide jobs and goods for all the folks here in the state and all around the world where the goods and services go. You may not typically think of ports as part of the resilience effort, but so I always like to include those, even though they are connected through our water resource infrastructure, but they really play a big part in our economic resilience efforts. Then, of course, we talked, I think we've already mentioned the existing CNSF flood resiliency efforts down in Broward and Dade counties. There are kind of those yellow polygons down there that outline the footprints of those two efforts. And I'll get into the 216 effort in Miami-Dade County on the next slide. But those fit in into that inland line of protection, taking those the rainfall runoff and directing it where it needs to go and not where we don't want it. So that plays also not only into our well-being, but also economic resilience. We need to keep roads and businesses open so that people have opportunities for jobs and continue recreation, things like that. So those play a big role as well. And then all of our SERP work, highlighted by all the different numbers you see on this map. Lots of different projects going on in different phases with it. Some of the studies like the Biscayne Bay, Southeastern Everglades Restoration or BBCR that's going on down there in South Florida. But also a lot of construction efforts such as the EAA Reservoir, C43 Reservoir, C44 Reservoir, all of those big things that are either in construction or in what we call operational testing and maintenance that help provide resilience both from a water supply and environmental restoration perspective, but also help enhance flood risk management and limit flows going out to the coast where they do detrimental or have detrimental effect on our coastal ecosystem. So lots of work going on within our portfolio from the coast to the inland areas. And then kind of the last thing I want to mention that ties all that together is operational studies. So I think most people are familiar with LOSOM, Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual that we finished up last year, and are wrapping up our dry season operations for this year, which included active recovery operations, which were intended to benefit Lake Okeechobee health, and we've seen really positive effects from those operations to date, and hope to continue to see the effects of that throughout the next year or so as we see the vegetation reestablish in the littoral zones and fish populations increase within the lake. So I think that's been a really good tool in the toolbox for this year to help with lake health, and I think we'll see it long-term good effects from LOSOM to our coastal systems as well as moving more water to the south. So operations play a big part in our resilience effort. We also have ongoing operational planning efforts for the SEP operations, that first increment we call SEP Ops. That's ongoing, and then operational planning studies for the C44 reservoir and the C43 reservoir. So lots of efforts related to operations as well. All right, go ahead and move to the next slide, please. All right, so talk a little bit more specifics about the CNSF Flood Resiliency Section 216 study, which is the Miami River Basins, formerly known as Planning Reach C. So I think most of you are probably familiar with the original plan had 4 planning reaches, and we've broken that into 4 separate efforts. The one we're focused on with the Water Management District as our partner is in Section 216 in that Miami River Basin. We'll be focused on 4 of those coastal control structures within that basin. Good news is we had been waiting on some approvals at headquarters to allow us to access some additional funds. We received that approval in April, but the Deputy Commanding General Kelly signed our vertical team alignment memorandum and endorsed that to the Assistant Secretary of the Army's office, which allowed us to access some additional funds and raised our study budget up to $3 million federal, $6 million total, while we wait on the approval of the full request for additional resources that's captured in that VTAM document. It requires the ASA to approve that. So we're still waiting on that, but good news is in the meantime, we got approval to increase our budget slightly and start accessing some additional funds and get work back going. So we've had a couple of meetings both internally and with the Water Management District over the last week or so to reinitiate efforts on this study. Our near-term work will focus on completing our future without project modeling, the economic modeling. That needs to be done to establish kind of our baselines. So that work will happen this fiscal year, as well as some internal reviews of our modeling tools, both the hydrologic modeling tool, the hydraulic modeling tool, the Mike Hydro model. And then we'll also be working with the Water Management District and stakeholders in Miami-Dade County to develop our final array of alternatives for this effort. So that's kind of the goal by the end of the fiscal year is to be pretty close to having identified what that final array of alternatives will look like and be able to pass that on to the modeling team next fiscal year. Good news is we just received word, I guess, last week that we were picked up in the FY25 work plan. So we have funds to carry us into next fiscal year to continue the good work for this study. So that's a good news effort or good news story moving forward. All right, so I guess the next steps, as I said, we talked about some of the technical efforts and the coordination that will happen over the next 4 months, 4 months in this fiscal year. And then the final thing that we need is that approval of our full request for additional resources, which includes a time extension to complete this work. We'll be coordinating with the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works to get that a review and approval, hopefully within the next 4 months. All right, next slide, please. All right, and finally, we'll wrap up with our newest flood risk management study, the Shingle Creek and Kissimmee River study. The map you can see on the left there highlights the study area, so it includes the Shingle Creek proper and the downstream Lake Opalaga or Lake Toho, and that's the area we're going to focus on for this study. We've just completed the alternatives milestone, which is the first big milestone in the process that happened a couple weeks ago. So we're working through the final coordination for at South Atlantic Division and with Osceola County as our non-federal sponsor to wrap up that scope development and move on to the next phase, which will be the development of alternatives and analyzing those as we work towards our tentatively selected plan milestone, which is scheduled for next year. So lots of good work going on the Corps side. Focus on a lot of different efforts, not just our flood risk management studies, but also, of course, all of the restoration efforts under SURF and all of our coastal and navigation projects. So wanted just to give everybody some highlights there, and if there are any questions on any specific efforts, ready to take those.
Thank you, team. Anything you want to add, Jenny?
No.
I know we're sharing a lot of data, and there is a lot of team working on behind the scenes right now. Okay, great. So with no more questions, thank you very much, team. Thank you, Jenny. We'll continue the coordination with the Army Corps team. So let's move to around the table updates. I think we'll start on the left. Jennifer, I know you started with some, but do you like to start us up? Do you have any other updates, Chuck? Sorry. Okay, so Jennifer.
Thank you. I'll keep it somewhat high level because I know next meeting, hopefully we'll be able to share some of the results. But basically, the CH&EP is partnering with Resiliency Florida to help co-fund the 10 counties that we serve in Central and Southwest Florida. And so right now we have 5 of those counties going. We are working with Polk, Charlotte, Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands right now. And each county is at a different place somewhat in the process. So we're really customizing these projects to which each county wants as far as additional capacity or analysis or planning. With Polk, we're doing 200 and 500-year event flood modeling. So they're kind of like the most advanced out of our region and wanting to go really out way above and beyond in understanding potential rainfall-driven flooding, which is a real issue for inland counties. And also we're funding some innovative work to animate and visualize the results of that to be able to communicate that to the public. So hopefully we'll be able to share some of that in the fall. With Charlotte County, I see one of my colleagues, Molly from Charlotte County, is here. We're working closely with them on their baseline comprehensive vulnerability assessment work. Just finishing the sensitivity and exposure analysis right now. So be happy to share some of those results next meeting. And then with Hardy, DeSoto, and Highlands, they already had their baseline CVA work done, so we are funding adaptation action planning to identify and prioritize AAA areas and then to develop customized plans for the top 3 prioritized areas in each of those counties. So we are also planning to do that. Basically, that gets it implementable, right? So the vulnerability assessments identify the problems, but this is really to help bridge it into, okay, what are the potential solutions at a conceptual level? And obviously, there is some engineering analysis involved, but there would even need to be more detailed engineering at a future phase when those projects go forward for implementation. We are looking to do a similar type of effort in Glades, Hendry, Sarasota, Manatee, and Lee counties. So we're in scoping with those 5 counties right now and hoping to kick those off The current projects are set to finish up this late summer, early fall, and then the next batch of 5 counties will be kicking off around that same time, hopefully. Obviously, a lot of this is contingent on federal funding. That continues to have some level of uncertainty. We're funding this through the IIJA bill. So we'll keep everyone apprised, but, at this point, we're moving forward. And as Carolina mentioned, we are piggybacking our Southwest Florida Climate Summit on the statewide Florida Resiliency Summit that's going to be held in Southwest Florida at Port Charlotte at the Sunseeker Resort in the fall in September. So if you're interested in signing up for that, we're going to add an extra day. We're coordinating with those organizers to dovetail our 2 events together so that people can come and hit both of those at one time. So if you're interested, go to our website, chnep.org. June 1st, we're going to be posting things online on our website for people who are interested in attending that. So with that, that's our update. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Amy?
Thank you. Amy Eason, Environmental Resource Engineer for Martin County. And we've got several things going on. Our vulnerability assessment is finalized by the end of June. I'm doing a major outreach right now. I'm connecting with our community redevelopment agencies and our neighborhood advisory committees. I'm planning on basically doing a road show for 7 meetings just to gather as many people as I can and advertise so that people can come to those meetings. They'll be local. I'm coming to them. I'm also going to 3 Chamber of Commerce to present the vulnerability assessment along with the Rivers Coalition. So I have a busy July and August going to all these meetings so that I can make sure I get proper outreach for our vulnerability assessment. In the same time, we're doing our adaptation plan, which is kind of nice that the vulnerability assessment is going to be concluding with that, and the adaptation is going to quickly come in together, so they'll easily be tied together. And that outreach would be expected in September for the adaptation plan, so hopefully it won't be a roadshow for that one, but we'll see. We're currently finished the construction of MacArthur Boulevard. We raised that road. It was part of our Bathtub Beach restoration and resiliency project. It was a great project. It looks wonderful, so please come out and see Bathtub Beach. Great dune system has been replanted, and it's a nice project. We also have the Old Palm City Neighborhood Restoration Project, which will be raising some of those roads within a very low neighborhood. The idea is to go into these restoration projects, these neighborhood projects, and try to make them cohesive and making sure that you are adapting at the same time as you're coordinating with all the other utilities that may be in the area so that you're going into a neighborhood once and not having to go multiple times. We're also have our backflow preventer projects that are going on that received Resilient Florida funding, along with our Cypress Creek floodplain restoration project. It's an interesting project. We're planning on putting a weir on downstream, and we're coordinating with South Florida Water Management District just kind of hold back some of that water and restore the floodplain. It'll also help with resiliency when we start to see that saltwater intrusion come in. We're awaiting, I'm hoping, well, I'm sure many of us are awaiting HMGP grant money for raising Mockingbird Road, that was about a 4-foot. We're raising that road. It's 0.2 miles, about 4 feet of fill with ancillary drainage system, along with Hope Heights neighborhood restoration project, which I think there's some houses that need to be raised in that project. Martin County is currently updating their local mitigation strategy, and we're planning on submitting that sometime in July. So it's good to hear that South Florida Water Management District is engaged and wants to be part of that. I believe we are asking for submittals for projects upcoming, like really soon, so it can be part of that plan. And I'd like to conclude with the start of our integrated watershed management plan, which will look at sea level rise, flooding, and water quality all in one plan so that we're not duplicating efforts trying to get grant money here and there, but it's a cohesive look at our watersheds. So thank you very much. And I could give a little bit update of St. Lucie County because I was at their VA meeting last week. So they had a little bit of a outreach going on, and I think they had their virtual meeting yesterday, and they're doing another one on their vulnerability assessment on Thursday. So there you go.
Yeah, good. Thank you for the update from Sandy too. I know she was here until now. We definitely need to catch up and circle back based on what we are finding on the LOS and how we can also tie into your watershed master plan. I mean, that's why we are doing all of those things together. So, yeah, that would be good to have a meeting on that. Okay, moving to Boynton Beach. Alicia? Good.
All right, Boynton Beach. So we're working on a lot of different projects related to our resiliency and vulnerability assessments. As far as our watershed master plan, we're taking it to our city commission on June 3rd for final approval. That'll help with our CRS scoring, as well as making sure that we're coming up with an actual pathway forward for resilience for some of our flood management. We're also, we received a Resilient Florida program grant for our vulnerability assessment updates. So we are, we just received the executed grant agreement last month, so we're working on putting together an RFP to get our vulnerability assessment updated. We're also working on a Resilient Florida program grant adaptation plan. We just finished task 1 with the kickoff meeting. We're currently working concurrently on tasks 2 and 3. So we're hosting a community and public outreach workshop on July 8th. So we're opening it up to not just community members, but also stakeholders that have a vested interest in the city of Boynton Beach. And that'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. on July 8th. We'll be posting some stuff on our social media, sending out emails to those that we work with, and we really hope to see you there. And if you cannot attend, we're putting together a survey, so for before and after the workshop, so that way you can still provide input without necessarily having to be there in person, because we want to get the most feedback possible for how we can move forward with our adaptation plan. Lastly, we're also getting ready to kick off a living shoreline assessment for some of our coastal parks to make sure that we're putting the right types of technology and moving forward with some additional enhancements. Some of our parks experience flooding during king tide, especially in November and December when the king tide seems to be the highest. So we're hoping to put additional safeguards in there, like living shorelines and other green features to fortify our resilience. And those are the main updates for our community.
Megan.
Hey everyone, it's officially the afternoon, so good afternoon. Megan Houston from Palm Beach County. We are also working on our resilience action plan, finishing up the vulnerability assessment that said extreme heat and extreme flooding are our concerns. So we've been working with our consultant team to create a list of 30 that looked similar, you know, to the district's matrix of ranking projects. We've incorporated the Resilient Florida criteria some, but we added our own, you know, like, is it addressing multiple hazards, or is it helping to mitigate emissions, those kinds of things too. And then we will be communicating that with our administration and our board of county commissioners to then pursue funding, hopefully, for those projects that show that they'll help the county adapt to localized flooding issues, you know, site-specific, those kinds of things. And then we are also bringing our watershed, or our water master plan to our commissioners, I think, this summer. So that's something our building division is coordinating with our water resources manager, Paul Linton, who's unable to come today, but that's the other big update. Oh, and yes, the summit, the climate summit, December in West Palm Beach at the Palm Beach County Convention Center. Save the date, December 16th and 17th. Knock on all the wood. We've never, you know, we haven't had it in person since 2012 because 2016 there was a hurricane. In 2020, I think you all remember what happened then. So we're excited to have it in 2025 and in person. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jimena Pernet, stormwater engineer for the city of West Palm Beach.
We have a couple of efforts going on, and we are very excited about it. Last year in October, we completed the vulnerability assessment, and after that, the city got awarded two grants from the FDEP Resiliency Florida program to complete the adaptation plans for the citywide, and then another one focusing on the waterfront area of the city. Right now, we have an RFP out for seeking a consultant to help us to complete the waterfront adaptation plan. And hopefully in a couple of months, we will be releasing the second RFP for the citywide. Also, we have, the city's implementing a tidal valve program to help with the king tides and all that flooding that results from that. Right now, we have construction bid for installation of tidal valves in 14 locations, I believe. And so that bid is due the second week in June, so hopefully we get some proposals for that and we can kick off that project. Also, the city is updating the stormwater master plan, and that update will include the CIP list of projects that will be implemented in the next 20 years. We are also looking at impacts of sea level rise and how we can address those. And as part of the update too, we will be looking at the codes and ordinances and changes that we should implement to address all the challenges of flooding, and specifically right now, the city is growing, we have a lot of development, and we want to make sure that the city is ready is prepared from a resilience standpoint. And finally, I just wanna shout out our Curry Park construction kickoff was a couple of weeks ago. This is an existing park that was redesigned to implement improvements on a waterfront park. And these improvements include recreation, resiliency, and ecological restoration features along this area in the Lake Worth Lagoon. So we're gonna be constructing that one, and hopefully in a few months, we see the results of that. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. James?
From DOT, the big highlight that I want to share here this afternoon is that we're going to be under construction very soon down on one of our most vulnerable corridors, A1A in Hollywood. If you're familiar with the area, they've endured the chronic king tide flooding for many years. And this big project is the culmination of several years of coordination with both the county and the city and DOT. We're sharing the cost for the projects. We'll be under construction in the next couple months, and then it'll continue for the next couple of years. But we're building 4 pump stations and a couple of seawalls and hoping to see some big impacts with those improvements to reduce the flooding. A lot of it's on the side streets that belong to the city of Hollywood. So they've been patiently waiting for some relief for a long time.
Excellent. Good news. This is good news. Okay.
Hello, my name is Aiden Cronin, and I'm one of the Southeast field agents for the Resilience Florida program. And the main updates we have are the application period does open on July 1st, and we're having pre-application assistance every Thursday up until the end of June, and a link to that can be found on our webpage. And then we have a total of 346 projects ongoing right now, and 13 have been completed, with 32 additional ones having 100% completion on construction, and we're just waiting for their final deliverables.
Thank you. I know you were visiting some of our projects earlier last week. Thank you. Good to see you. Yes, Tom.
Little button here. Hi, Tom Lanahan, Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. Want to let you all know that we're going to be hosting our third Regional Resiliency Speaker Series next Wednesday. That's June 4th from 2 to 3 p.m. We're excited to welcome Dr. Bean from the University of Florida, who's going to introduce a new tool designed to help communities evaluate development codes and identify opportunities for low-impact development, green infrastructure for stormwater. Participants will learn how nature-based solutions can reduce flood risks, improve water quality, and strengthen long-term community resilience. This event is free. It's open to anybody who wants to call in for it. And if you go on our website, which is tcrpc.org, you can find out how to sign up for that. And we hope to see you there. And just a shout out to my colleague at FDEP. They're helping fund that for us. So we got a little grant from them for that. So that's my big update today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, Miami-Dade, Christian.
Good afternoon. It's pushed when I'm, okay. Julie Dick, I am the new Deputy Chief Resilience Officer in what is now Miami-Dade County's Office of Environmental Risk and Resilience. We've changed our name, and the wonderful Lauren Parra is now our Chief Resilience Officer. We've had some pretty significant changes in our office. Our staff is about 60% less than it once was, but we've really been able to move a lot of that staffing into departments to really operationalize a lot of the functions of our office. At the same time, we're keeping up with so much of the resilience work. We have a smaller, nimbler team that's really, I think, going to be incredibly effective in continuing this work, especially with the resources we have now across departments. We passed an impervious surfaces ordinance last year that many of you may be aware of, but we're continuing to work with our municipalities in reducing runoff and expanding impervious surfaces consistent with that ordinance. We're doing a lot of work on septic to sewer conversions and making strong progress on that. And then we have so many adaptation projects across the county, along with just really incorporating our flood projections in all our infrastructure projects and building projects countywide. I'm going to pass it over to Christian Camerath to go into some more detail of a few of the projects we're working on.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Christian Camerath with Miami-Dade County. We're also in the mid stages of completing our vulnerability assessment for FDEP. We got another planning grant to develop sea level rise design guidelines that'll affect county infrastructure projects. And part of the overall, in addition to the vulnerability assessment, planning grant funds are going towards an adaptation action area plan for our Biscayne Canal, or the C8 Canal. So we've been in lots of good coordination and continue that with the district. And we're looking to have some engagement in that area, which includes municipalities like North Miami, Biscayne Park, and Miami Shores. We had a coastal mayors forum last week, led by a few of our municipal mayors, where we presented about both water quality aspects from our DERM office and our reasonable assurance planning work, and also our adaptation action area work. Tim sort of touched on it, but for the Army Corps of Engineers Back Bay Coastal Storm Risk Management Study, we're waiting and seeking appropriations to advance the initial recommendations from a 2024 report into the design phase. So we're still crossing our fingers for funding to come through on that front, but we'll continue phase 2 of the feasibility study, which is looking at similar measures, non-structural, home elevations, flood proofing of critical infrastructure and businesses. That's ongoing with Norfolk District, who's leading that in coordination with Jacksonville District 2, looking at additional focus areas that weren't included in the first phase of the feasibility study. So we expect to have more public engagement and webinars probably in late July. And their tentative planning process has us with a tentatively selected plan in February of 2026 next year. So those are some of the updates there. And we're gearing up for Resilient Florida application cycle, getting our departments all ready for that.
It's coming next to us. Okay. Any other update? I saw Greg was here from Broward. I think he left, but any other update from anybody in the audience? Florida Food Hub liaisons, anything they're ready to share? Okay. So with that, I think we're ready to adjourn. The 9:30 brings us to the lunchtime, and I'm sure we are all hungry now, but we managed to finish to 12:12, not too bad. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you very much. We truly appreciate the opportunity to engage with you all. Everyone.
Haven't signed in, can you please sign in? Thank you.
Yes, please don't forget to sign in. There were a few ones that we didn't sign.